Welcome to Conversations with Buddy. I'm your host, Buddy Puckett, brought to you by Valor Mentoring, where we mentor men to love Jesus, to love people, and to make a difference in the world. That's always our goal, and we hope that every week that's the message you're receiving. This week we have a great guest. I can't wait to introduce him. This guy's been in the military. He's been married for a long time. I think we have lots to learn. So let me introduce you, my friend, Kevin Dial. Welcome, Kevin.
Hi, buddy. Thanks for the invite. And
Hey.
Thanks for the time.
Well, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate this. It's been a little while. We've talked about it for a while, and here we are.
Here we are.
Well, you're a guy that's going to be tricky to introduce. I say that because you've done so many things. I'm going to give a 30,000-foot view, but really the podcast is going to be really about your life and kind of where you've been. You've done a lot of things. You share with me a lot of stuff here. I'm going to go off of memory and just really share what I do know. So you've been married for 35 years.
On Monday.
Yeah, to the same lady.
To the same lady.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
You're turning 60 next week.
Yes, that is also happening.
You've got 3 biological kids,
3 bios.
and then you've also
One adopted,
and
then 10 fosters and wards. And over the last couple of years, we've even had a couple 30-somethings that now say, hey, you're my dad.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're the guy, if I need somebody, I can call you at 1 a.m. and you'll come and get me.
That is an absolute true statement. If you're in my phone and I understand or recognize the phone number that comes on in the middle of the night, I answer and we come have a discussion. At least the next day we have a discussion.
Yeah.
Maybe not a...
Because I assume the guys that you're rescuing in the middle of the night, unlike your son who broke down somewhere, but a guy who calls you at 1 a.m., he's probably not doing something he should be doing. Is that true?
Correct. He has made decisions that put him into a place where he needs some assistance. And again, mentoring will be one of those baseline discussions that we have today during this time. But, people need to have somebody they can call on. And the world is not built that way anymore.
Right. Would you call that a come to Jesus meeting?
The second meeting would be.
Second meeting.
Pickup is usually not that.
Okay.
Yeah. I have learned over my life, discussing anything with somebody that doesn't have their full faculties is never a good discussion.
It's just a waste of time. They don't remember what you said.
They do not. Yeah.
Okay. Just go to sleep. We'll talk in the morning.
Absolutely. Or the next day, but we will have a discussion.
Okay. So you gave me your bio, which was really, there's a lot. Things I took away, you were a Marine. You signed up for the Marines. You did that for 4 years.
Correct.
Then you went to the Army National Guard.
I did.
32 years?
Almost 32 years.
Almost 32 years.
Total time in service with the Marine Corps and the Army was 35 years, 11 months, 7 days. So
how many minutes now?
It's a clear-cut line in the sand for sure. They sign you up on a day and they tell you this is when your expiration date is.
And you retired as colonel in the Army National Guard?
I did.
Okay.
Yep. And I was a full-time soldier at the end of my career. For most of my Guard service was part-time and came out of the Marine Corps Reserve and I came into the Army National Guard, served most of that as a reservist. And late in my career, I got an opportunity to pull full-time duty and then a full-time retirement from the military.
Yeah. Hallelujah. Well, so you did military. But there's some things that happened in your life early on, and that's really what I want to talk about because I'm always curious because I only know the latter part of Kevin. I met you a handful of years ago. We know each other pretty well.
Right.
I know you're a solid dude. I know you're a believer. I know you're committed. You're loyal, faithful. You're that guy. You're the guy that we just know. We want to be like you. And not that you're perfect by any means, but you're on the right road. And so let's go back and unpack some things that happen in life. I noticed that you have some Bible verses that you, Romans 5, 3 through 5, 1 Corinthians
10:13,
and
Ephesians
then
2:10.
Ephesians 2:10.
So let me baseline Romans 5, 3 through 5. Rejoice in your suffering. Suffering brings perseverance. Perseverance brings character. Character brings hope. Hope does not disappoint according to the love that he's poured out through his Holy Spirit. And that's into my life. If you take suffering, the worst times you've lived through in life, and you see them as a part of a process, it's not even a 10-step or a 5-step. This is how life works. The hardest times you go through will build you into the person that God wants you to be. If you try to avoid those times and you try to do the shortcuts or the go-arounds or this relationship's too hard, I'm just going to break it off and I'm going to do something else. Hey, this job is too hard, I'm just going to break it off and do something else. Hey, this payment is too hard, I'm just going to file bankruptcy and do something else. You have missed an opportunity to grow and build those spiritual muscles that God needs in you to be the person, the man or the woman later in life that can then minister to somebody else. It is my kids hate it. It gets hard. Suck it up, buttercup.
Well, you said the key word, embrace the suck. And I've known that as a military term. I wasn't military, but I love and appreciate life is about suffering. You know, Christ said, suffer as I have suffered.
Yeah.
And if you want to circumvent that, you can't. You can try, but you can't.
You know, and it's having a knowledge that life will be difficult and then having a plan for it. My wife and I, 35 years we've been together, we have talked about what happens when the worst days happen. And for us, the worst day ever would be the loss of a child. We've had that discussion. What does our faith look like on the other side of the worst day you've ever had? That's hard to talk about. But to know that my faith will endure and it will be the foundation of my recovery past that point. There will be hard days. There will be days that you can't get up, but you know there's a better day ahead and you just get through that. One of the things that was that life-changing event was the loss of my father at age 10. A drunk driver hit my dad and was so drunk didn't know he hit him and left him on the side of the road. My dad had been on a motorcycle. And so the funny thing about that, and I don't say funny, not haha, but the way life works, that young man was 18, just graduated from high school. It was June, and he had had a high school graduation party that changed his life forever because he went to jail. But his sister had lived with us. That family in our community had actually had some other problems that had been known by the community. And there was a time where his sister came and lived with us for a while because that family was imploding. And before large foster care and large systems involved, you had neighbors that came around each other and they made a difference in that neighborhood. So we knew the family pretty well. My mom had actually opened our doors. And then when that young man made that decision to get in a car behind a wheel that killed my dad, my mom wouldn't press charges. The state had to, because my mom says, no, we're not going down that road. We know that the situation he grew up created who he is, and there should be some grace and some love. He did spend some time, and I've never gone back and tried to find him, because again, I don't think that's the engagement that needs to be there. You took something from me, but that opportunity for me to grow, that was what God was doing in my life. This was about me. And to see my mom's strength during that time, the examples of the people that God put in my life during that time made me who I am today. And my dad was a Christmas, Easter only guy. He was a very firm believer, but he didn't go a lot. Yeah. Mom kept us in the church, kept us in the pew. And so when dad was pulled out, I was 10, my brother was 8.5. And we literally changed our trajectory at that point because now mom was the primary influence. Didn't get married for quite a few years after that time. And so I was butt in seat if doors were open. So church was more than just a thing to do. It was my second home. And that then meant that the influences in my life were not somebody that went to church twice a year, but they were men that lived in the church, that served others. They were grandfathers and they were uncles, and they were, again, I got a breadth of dads across the spectrum that I never would have seen with the path that we were on. I don't think things happen for any just chance. I think there's a very clear purpose. Yeah. And through the hardest times, I think that God built me into who I am today. So that, again, my military career was very dependent on that time. It changed who I became.
So here's, I just want to explain a little bit about this. So you were the oldest of two at the time. Yep. You're 10. Your dad is killed. Your mom's a pretty faithful believer. I noticed in your bio, you talked about being, what was the word you used?
Latchkey.
Latchkey. There's another word you used too.
We were wild children.
wild child, but you became the man of the house at 10 years old.
Yeah.
And so when did you come to know Christ, number one? And then now you're almost 60.
Yeah.
It's been 50 years since your dad's passed. Hadn't thought about that probably for a while. Maybe you have. How's that made you who you are today? And so I want to go back just to that when you're 10 years old, being the man of the house. How'd that impact you for today? Because I noticed that you got a tear in your eye when you started talking about your kids, and there's a soft spot there.
Yeah. At 10, I'd already made a decision. Again, growing up in a family that my mom was very clear, and she gave very good explanations of why faith is such an important part of life. And I know 10 is awful young, but I think it was like 9 that I'd already made a decision for Christ. So at 10, that again was part of my DNA, part of my spiritual being and who I was as a human being. And so it kind of led towards all those other pieces that, again, I needed to step up and build responsibility. And I don't think that happens in a lot of kids today. You don't give them opportunities to be a kid, but yet to have potential responsibility to step up and say, I'm going to take care of the dishes. I'm going to fix the meal tonight. I'm going to do my own laundry. I'm going to clean my own room. There are consequences if you don't do the things. And now we get kids that have never gone through that trial period, through that difficulty. They've had a very soft life, and they get to adulthood and they don't know how to engage in a workplace, engage in a relationship, engage in parenthood. A lot of people, they get married and then they have a kid and they throw a new life into a dysfunction because they're not doing the things they need to do to be a husband and wife. They're not following through with their obligations, and they're spending too much time at work, and they're spending too much time in personal activities or on a video game or on a phone. And so again, they're disconnected from that relationship. And then you add a third life into that, and you try to teach them. What I believe isn't taught, it's caught.
Okay.
It is like a virus. My kids learn what I believe in by being a part of my life. We live in South Salem now, but when we lived in Kaiser, my kids were at every event that I did in Kaiser, and we did a lot of events. We're always involved in Kaiser Fest. In fact, still today, my kids come down and volunteer for that annual event. If there's a parade, we walk the streets afterwards with bags picking up garbage. Again, whatever, we'd walk in our neighborhood with a bag, and I would make them take a can of Goof Off, because if we saw graffiti, it is my neighborhood. I know that's not my fence, but that guy can't take care of his own fence, evidently. Let's take care of it for him. So again, those habits, then my kids get to adulthood, and I've got some in 20s and some in 30s. We have one 17-year-old coming up behind. He's pulling the trail end until God brings us another one. And he's learning those same habits from parents and brothers and sisters that are ahead of him.
How do you feel like you've done as a parent, being married for 35 years, you and your wife, of raising your kids by example and being who it is you're supposed to be, and how have your kids followed along in that?
As individuals, I am told 3 rules out of the book. Love, love, go. Love God, love others, and go and make more. So I love God wholeheartedly. That's the first mission. Loving others means whenever I can, I engage in that. And my kids and my wife are that top priority, right below God. And, every event I could be at, even being in the military. When I came home on my mid-tour leave in 2011, I took the kids out rock hunting. We went to the desert, and I spent a week with my kids. That was my major time, and time with my wife. But, the priority was they need to know that Dad is still there for them. And I was constantly, as much as I could, on social media, touching bases with them and doing that connection. How have I done as a parent? There are failures that I say I could have been there more for this. I could have been, I don't think harder, but I could have been more clear on what the dangers are in the world that they're about to navigate. And my kids are human, and they make their own friends. And we talk about having your top 5. Who are your 5? Which 5 guys or gals are you hanging out with? Because that's the direction you're going.
It's going to influence you, period. End of story.
End of story.
I don't care how tough we are. I was telling a guy this morning over coffee, is like, I'm easy to influence. Like in high school and stuff, I was doing things I shouldn't be doing because my buddies were doing it. And I can see that now. That was a bad decision. I was doing it. So who's your friends? That will tell a lot about what your life becomes.
100%. And everybody goes, well, I'm witnessing to them. You had better be very clear. And so in the military, it was funny because that culture is built around, you bring somebody in at 18, you give them a paycheck and you pay all their bills for them, all their housing and all their food. And so the money they get every month is 100% disposable income. So you see motorcycles and you see Camaros and you see incredibly poor life choices and you see adult entertainment sites that you probably shouldn't be hanging out with and all those things. So these kids that sign up for a 6-year contract, they get out and they literally have had 6 years of being an infant with unrestricted access to funds and no adult leadership after hours. It is horrible.
It's horrible. It is flat out horrible.
Horrible. So the ones that go in, though, with a clear faith and they get connected to groups or associations or other believers that are on the same mindset that I'm not going to be drug into this. I talked to a young lady just last week that had gone to a college, and I asked her what her faith background was. And she goes, I used to be a real clear, firm believer. And, but I went to college and, here I am. I'm somewhat of an agnostic. And I said, that saddens me. But again, I understand how when you put yourself into a shark tank and you try to swim across, there's a lot of people that don't make it across that shark tank. Then this week, I talked to another young lady who's just starting. She just graduated high school. And her dad were meeting with me about talking about funding and how they can get the process and how to lay out the path ahead. That mentoring, because I've been down this road with multiple children. Yeah. And I said, first off, you need an advisor. You need somebody that's been on this road that can take you down there. But I also cautioned her at the end of this. I said, you're headed into the very most dangerous spiritual environment in this world. Our public education system for colleges, because those people are unbelievers and they teach it and they train it and they actually will harm you in some aspect of your spirit if you don't stay strong and keep your armor on and, be defending against those fire arrows that are getting shot at your faith every day. It is truly sad, but my kids, I don't encourage them to go to college. Find a career that pays well. The Mike Rowe method, that you can find something that is a real job that doesn't require hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt that you'll never get out of.
I get it. It's being indoctrinated into something, not believing, but also being in debt. I've had the same conversation with my daughters when they were getting ready to go to college. Like, hey, Dad, I want to go to this 4-year college. I was like, okay, cool.
But
it's going to cost not $30,000 a year, but $120,000. I'm happy to pay half, but we're spending your half first.
Yeah.
I just want to be clear. So that's $60,000. How do you want to do that? Like, And so the head scratching. So they worked around and got through college and said, but I do agree that your faith better be strong. I'm thankful for a lot of these on-campus ministries. There's hundreds of them, probably FCA.
Yeah. CAs, Christ Ambassadors, they're literally YWAM. They're even OSU has some faith-based like fraternities, and so they have.
I'm glad you. Let me just tell you a quick story, and we'll get back to you. But about a year and a half ago, my cousin from Central Oregon, his son Cole, went to Oregon State. First year, he was living on campus, and he grew up in church. Whether he's a believer or not, don't know. It was horrible. Mm-hmm. And then the last week spring term, my wife and I went to church down in Corvallis. We brought him with us. And the pastor at Calvary Chapel Church gave an invitation to receive Christ, get baptized, and he went down. And long story short, he went home for the summer, came back, he joined this Christian fraternity, and we met over the summer. And I mean, they have Bible study on Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, on and on and on and on. And there's accountability is a beautiful thing. So
you talked about accountability. You said you'd been to a Bible study already this morning. I also had started at 6:30 or 6:20 this morning because I knew I had to be here on time. Yeah. And I tell men, I have a lot of guys say, hey, I want to meet, let's have a cup of coffee. I don't take it from my family. That time is my most valuable resource. Honestly, my time and my money, if I show you my calendar, I show you what's important. If I show you my checkbook, I show you what's important. Those two things. So my time, I have every morning at 6:30 every day open, except for I now have a Tuesday, a Thursday, and a Friday that are blocked out most of those days, unless I have an emergency. And so I always have a Monday and a Wednesday. And I can tell the seriousness of somebody's commitment.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to spend some time with you.
Cool.
Absolutely. I got
6:30.
Monday and Wednesday at 6:30. Which
there?
one do you want? And you definitely see, well, I'm not that committed. Well, then it's not that important because I'm not stealing it from my family. My work also, there's a value there. And if I take it from work, something didn't get done there as well. And that's theft.
Ooh, okay. So no stealing.
No stealing. Yeah, that's one of the big 10 that, I know we're in the New Testament and there's a new law, but I think those 10 are pretty good.
Absolutely. Guidelines. For sure.
Yeah.
It's funny you say, I learned, 25 years ago, I had a guy, God had brought in my life. He was doing some things he shouldn't be doing. And we met the next morning. This is 25 years ago at 7 a.m. And I realized to get men's attention, it's got to be early in the morning. So when guys, hey, let's meet. I go, is it 5, 6, or 7? Huh?
Yeah.
5, 6, or 7. That's the time. 7? Okay. 5? Cool. 6? I mean, Starbucks is open. That's why
Yeah.
I drink a lot of Starbucks just because that's the place is open early. And so, but I agree. I think to get men's attention, to make sure they're serious about the change, I don't want to get them at the end of the day when they're tired and frustrated. I want to get them early.
And if it doesn't cost you something, it has no value. I worked in youth ministries for years, and kids that you'd give them a free ride to camp, they may not show up. If they've got skin in the game, if they've got something invested, they had to work for it, they had to donate time, they had to actually work. Hey, I'll pay you $20 an hour to work in my yard. Absolutely. You can go to camp in about 2 days.
That's right.
But you got to put in the sweat equity, right?
I think that whole accountability, I call it leverage also.
Yeah.
Even my daughter, I have 2 daughters. I didn't have sons. I had daughters. God blessed me with 2 daughters. And like I said, I'm happy to join you. I always say this. I don't care if you're going on a mission trip, you're buying a car. I'll always meet halfway.
Yeah.
But I'll always spend your money first.
Yeah.
I want to know that you're all in. And if you're not all in, you're not going to spend your money. You're not going to suffer for your cause, whatever that may be. I'll suffer with you, but we're going to suffer your suffer first.
Yeah.
Right?
That leads to that Ephesians 2:10. We are his workmanship, created for good works in Christ, who has called us ahead of time for those works. There is so much, and I don't say yes to everything, which can often be my default. I actually have that is my one probably failure is I try to do too much, which again takes from my family because they're the ones that pay the price when I say yes to something on a weeknight. And so we really try to balance that. My wife, literally, we have a discussion. My time is the thing that I can't get back and I have to sit down with her. Now, when she has a money decision, we sit down because that's her challenge, right? The money, I'd love to have this. Well, 35 years, your finances are huge in that, but your time and your money are those two things. But I do believe God created us for a specific work. And when you see it, when it's in your wheelhouse and that working with youth, there were times when I went to a youth camp and I was the clean the toilet guy and work in the support piece. And then there are other times when I'm the guy leading the front and doing the engagement and doing the counseling. But knowing your role in each one of those environments and being able to step back and say, somebody else needs to grow, somebody else needs to go forward. And I can be one of your 5 at that time. I can be the guy you come, hey, I just had this engagement with this kid and this is where I'm at. I said, hey, I've dealt with that before. That's that mentoring piece. Mentoring is so huge. Somebody has done this before you.
Yeah.
Life is an open book.
Yeah.
Somebody's got the answer.
Somebody's been there before.
Absolutely.
It'd be wise for you to go consult them. I was going to say real quick to your point though, when we think, God is number one in our life and then our wives and our kids, and my wife and I have had discussion too. I've been married for 33 years, a couple years less than a year. And one of the, I won't call a complaint, but my wife is shared with me, hey, look, you're out there saving all the guys, but what about me? And so even 1 year ago, at 32 years of marriage, we decided Monday mornings were her time at 7 a.m. That's her time. No one else gets that time. She gets the first part of Sunday's obviously the first day of the week, but I'm talking about the work week, Monday morning, it's her time. It's probably the greatest thing we've ever done. Because she wanted to know, is she on the list or is she just like 5th, 6th, 10th? And so then you and I are up early mentoring men, discipling men. We're pouring out. We're saving the world because we
Yeah.
said yes. And our wives are like, but what about me?
Yeah.
So, me too. I've had to pull back and go, you know what? I have a savior complex. I want to go save the world, yet can't even save myself.
Yeah.
And I've had to learn how to say no. Or, Kevin, gee, you want mentoring? Cool. Tell me what is on your heart that you want to change. If we're just going to get together and grab coffee, I mean, like, I'm pretty busy.
Yeah.
I need to know that we're actually going to do something. And if we're not, that's okay. But my time is my most valuable resource, and time is ticking.
Yeah.
You're going to turn 60.
Yeah.
I mean, can you believe it?
No.
You were once 20, now you're 60.
Yeah.
So,
It was just yesterday.
how do you say no to a guy like that maybe you don't know does need help, doesn't know he doesn't need help, whatever? How do you say no when you should?
It takes an engagement, first off. That's like me sharing my faith. I don't beat people across the head with what I believe, but I got to get to know you before and again, we have to come to the point where you're asking, my life doesn't work. And we have a relationship, and I know there's a place for street corner ministries, and I know there's a place for going out and digging them out of the highways and byways. God has asked me to be relational. And when I get to a point, if we meet and I see that you're not willing to change, I literally have a friend right now that he's struggled with alcohol addiction. And he and I we soldiers together. He was on my team when I deployed. He was one of my soldiers there. And he has gone through some challenges that were self-induced.
Self-inflicted. I was going to say.
Self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah.
And we're now at a point where, his last marriage doesn't look like it's going to make it. She's moved out of state. But I think he is on a path that he will get past that. And I will just tell you, every time he called me when he was not where he should be or not doing what he should be doing, it was hard to answer that phone call. But God had put it on my heart that this one's worth saving. This one's worth being the friend of. This one's worth being a brother to walk beside. And we continue to walk that way. He had ghosted on the last couple of texts and phone calls I'd made him. So I sent him a note he couldn't refuse. And hey, I've not been feeling well. And I said, all right, I hope you're still making good choices. Oh, yeah, not being afraid to call people to accountability is part of that. And then there are other people that I said, I can't help you right now. Honestly, my family is my priority. I don't have capacity, and I can't step up to the plate. I can't be the person you're going to want. I'd be doing you and I a disservice if I stepped into that role. So it takes courage, and it takes saying no to some of the things that you'd want to do. But again, I think prayer is also a part of that, stepping back. And we had we would always done boys when we did foster care and that kind of care program. And we were a lawyer friend of ours here in town. She comes up and she says, I have this girl and she's petitioning to be removed from her parents' custody at 14. It was a long story, but she had been basically driven down to a point where she did say that she said in court, I need off this crazy train. And the lawyer comes to us and we said, we don't take girls, we take boys. And so we stepped back, but we'll pray about it.
Okay.
And she came again like the next week. I still have this girl that needs a home. We said, we just don't feel that it's on our heart yet. And then the week after, somebody had come and talked to us, and the first boy we ever adopted, when we adopted him, his mom became our daughter at the same time. And so I know it's weird. She didn't formally, there wasn't no legal paperwork, but our adopted 17-year-old, his 37-year-old mom is my daughter. She really is my daughter for all intents and purposes. Her new son and daughter are my grandkids. They're also my adopted son's half-brother, half-sister. And Christmas is just crazy chaotic, but he has a relationship with those people. But we looked at that, and our daughter made some comments to say, this girl that you're being asked to take, look what she did for me. And so we took our first girl that lived with us at that time.
Yeah.
And it literally changed our trajectory as a family. It changed how we interacted. Again, boys' discipline can be very clear. They need what they need when they need it.
Yes.
And they need real answers, and they need very black and white lines.
Yeah.
That was not the same with a girl.
Uh-huh.
There was a lot of gray areas, and Dad can't just yell, "Stop it."
Boom. Exactly.
You need to give her a hug and explain why boys are bad.
Exactly.
At 14.
Exactly.
That boy that wants to hang out with you at his
doesn't
house
wanna
alone.
hang- yeah.
No,
You know.
yeah. So that mentoring changed everything when we got our first girl. But again, would not change that for the world. I love her.
How old's the girl now?
She is 23 or 4,
So 10 years ago, she came into your family.
Yeah.
So for 10 years,
10 years.
what would you say today about your daughter?
She is my heart. I love that girl to pieces.
And she knows that.
She does. She married a Navy guy.
on.
We had some discussions, he and I, before they got married. Again, he was
Come to
going
Jesus?
a little come to Jesus. He was going active duty Navy, smart kid from the local community. We knew. And so when they got married, again, I had told him, and we had that discussion. She was going to college, full ride. She'd been paid for. She was the distinguished woman for the Salem-Keizer area her junior year.
Yeah.
Smart girl. And I said, she's got a full ride scholarship, mostly, it's very low cost. She can get her degrees. And I said, so you're getting married. I want her to finish school. Well, I was not clear enough, and she disenrolled, but she went back, and he said, Dad, I understand you're upset. We had those hard conversations that these were the expectations. This is what we're doing.
I love that.
This is why we're doing it. And there's a plan. And then she's gone down, and now she's a licensed massage therapist. She had a baby last year in November. I've got a little granddaughter.
Come on.
And she, again, is my heart and joy. And we love seeing that family. She still has birth parents, and they still have engagement. But, when things get tough, she's going through some testing again now, and my wife was supposed to be up there this week. They've done some readjustment, but she'll be there next week for a couple of days to give her the capacity to do the studies and get the tests done. And my wife gets to be grandma for a couple of days up in Tacoma.
Loves that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. You said the word prayer. You were saying no, 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 or you could say yes, 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 but it always comes back to prayer. And if we'll surrender to praying and ask for the guidance from the Holy Spirit, we can make great decisions.
Yeah.
Because on my own, I know me, and I probably know Kevin. We might make bad decisions on our own.
We like to take the easy way. In the Army, they tell you the easy way is always mined.
Okay.
There are always booby traps. There's always bombs. There are always, in Afghanistan, just fall back. The roads, which are the easy way through the country, always have landmines. You can't just roll down and expect nothing to happen. If you're off trail, if you're beating through the brush, if you're going through the hard places, you're a lot less likely to be attacked. You're a lot less likely to have the bad things in life happen to you. But when we just take the easy path, I'm going to take the safe job, and I'm never going to change. I'm never going to look for what God's leading me towards. I'm going to go into ministry I'm going to sing in the choir, but I'm never going to be a small group leader. I'm never going to be one-on-one with another person talking my faith. Yeah. I'm never going to have unsaved friends that challenge my faith. I'll tell you, especially in this politically divided world, I have friends of every stripe and color.
Yeah.
It does not matter what you believe.
Right.
Honestly, I can have a discussion, and I can love you for who God made you to be.
Yeah.
And he, without sin, cast the first stone.
Come on.
I'm not throwing rocks.
No rocks here, man.
No rocks here. They're
Or worry about the plank in your own eye. Don't worry about the speck in your brother's eye.
Absolutely.
Loving people.
They really are. And that does mean I can sit down. I had some people that we had a discussion, and she says, well, I told my kids to never vote this way. And of course, she goes, of course. And I said, no, we vote differently. She goes, you do that? I says, yeah, I come at life a different way.
Yeah.
We both want to help people. I think people are helped by giving them purpose, by giving them initiative, by giving them, again, that skin in the game. If I'm giving you a check, I want to see that you value that check and that you're working for it. I'd love to give you a job. I don't want to give you a check. I want to give you a potential to change your future, your dynamic. I want to have you to have some personal accountability and pride.
Well, if you give somebody something, there's no self-respect in that. But if you earn it, I mean, we're guys, you're military. We want to, and that goes for the guys and the girls, or the guys and the ladies. I've got 2 daughters, and I've never, one thing my mom and dad taught me is you're going to work.
Yeah.
And so I don't care what you do. Guess what you're going to do? You're going to work and you're going to own it, all of it.
Yeah.
Period. Good or bad. And so at the end of the day, they're like, Dad, I'm so glad you made me do this. You never gave me anything.
Yeah.
I'll never give you anything that you can actually earn on your own, other than I will love you.
Love unconditional.
Love unconditionally. That's all I owe anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. If it doesn't matter whether we win or lose, why do we play for points? Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. It drives everybody, being able to win at life. And it's not about ending life with the most toys. At this point in my life, again, everything I have could be burned tomorrow, taken tomorrow, except for my family, that and my faith. If I've got those, I can get through the next challenge.
Yeah.
I worked for Santiam Canyon Long-Term Recovery Group
Yeah.
for 2.5 years. Actually, I'm still on their books.
Okay.
We're doing defensible space now. We're trying to keep properties from burning in the future.
Yeah.
But to see families that had lost everything, absolutely the only thing they escaped with was clothes on their bodies and their lives. And I have a friend, she was burned pretty intensively and spent the night in a field because their house had been surrounded by fire. Logs had blocked the road. The next day, they actually had somebody cut in their road to take the logs out so they could get them, and then they life flighted her to Portland. They have recovered. Now, it doesn't mean life's always happy, and there are some challenges that go through that.
Sure.
But to see, I'll tell you, the hugs she gives are the most amazing, and I can't imagine life without her. God puts those people that have endured the hardest things in our lives to show us that there is a potential. And maybe my life is just the example somebody else needs to see. My story, it's my story. I'll tell it, and I'll be proud of it.
Yeah. Well, perspective, I mean, if you think you're going to get through life without any pain or suffering, you're just kidding yourself. And here's the deal. I don't get to be the victim of life. Life happens. And so I think you're an encouragement. You've gone through a lot of stuff, having your dad die at 10. I can't imagine the pain. I don't know. My dad's still alive. But being the man of the house and having that pressure on you and then going the military route and raising kids and being married, there's suffering. One thing I always tell my daughters is like, pain is weakness leaving the body. I'm not exactly sure if that's what you'd say, but I think it's funny, but I love pain. I don't love pain for the sake of pain, but I know the outcome of pain is amazing.
Yeah.
And I want to embrace the suck, as you say. I want to embrace suffering and pain. And I want to get up every morning and do something painful and to be alive, and not be soft, not to be hard, but to be maybe focused. I don't know.
And when you walk through those tough times, my mom says calm seas never make good boat pilots. So the storms that you go through, she goes, when you get past that, in the middle of the storm, you're just cranking on the wheel and hitting the sails. You're just trying to get through that storm. You're just trying to make sure that you're not capsized. But when you get through it, the experience that I've learned on the other side of the difficult times, that leads to the third verse on that list, the 1 Corinthians 10:13. I got it. 1 Corinthians 10:13. No temptation has seized you except what is common to man, and God is faithful. He does not allow us to be tempted beyond what we can bear, but when we are tempted, he provides a way out so that you can stand up under it. So in the middle of my hardest, darkest times, I know that there are going to be challenges. I'm looking for the way out. I'm looking for the other side. I know there's a way out of this bad situation or this temptation or this difficult time. Get through it, then learn from it. When I was in high school, I was a science fiction kid. So I'd read Frank Herbert's Dune books, right? And they talk about fear as the mind killer, and it's called a litany of fear. And I know it's it's almost a religious statement, but if you are able to get through that fear, the things in life that are difficult, and you're able to look back on them, it is very biblical that we need to get through those tough times. We need to endure the difficulty. We need to go to the cross, even if what it means is my life was an example to somebody else. And I think service members, they see that price.
Yeah.
They are willing to sign on that piece of paper and say, this may cost me my life, but I believe in this cause so much. And that's when the disconnect happens, when somebody joins for college and then they get deployed. Hey, you knew this was an opportunity. You know,
I didn't know. I didn't think it would happen, but
yeah,
here we go.
here we go. You know, and then getting them to the place of acceptance. You know, this is what I signed on for. I think even believers don't understand that. We live in America. We live in a place that even though somebody may question your faith, you don't get persecuted for your
We
faith.
have no idea what persecution is.
We don't. You know, to see and to look at the Voice of the Martyrs and other places that just saying you change from Muslim to Christian means you get excommunicated and potentially will be killed.
Yes.
That
The book Fox's Book of Martyrs is a good book to go reflect on what true persecution is, and it will test your faith.
Yeah.
Do you really believe? You know, and so we have the Americanized version of Christianity, and it's pretty soft. I don't think I've ever been persecuted. I'm not joking. Like, I can preach the gospel and yeah, okay. I grew up in church, whether they know Christ or not.
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
and church is not a building.
It's not a building.
It is not a building. I don't care what you say, folks. Church is the family. It's the body of Christ. It really is. And they should be active and moving and engaging the world that we live in. And it does talk about the different parts. Not everybody's a mouth. Not everybody's speaking the message and doing the gospel. There have got to be hands that are cleaning a toilet. There have got to be hands that are feeding somebody. There's got to be a heart that's compassionate. There's got to be a mind that's praying. There's got to be feet that are going and taking gospel and support and the mission. You know, I'm a Corbin graduate. It was Western Baptist at the time, but in the time that I've graduated from that school, they have put in an agricultural department, and they are actually teaching missionaries how to change the communities they go into. When I was in Afghanistan, two of the things that I'm most proud of are the orphanage we built that the guys before us had started. We finished an orphanage, and we built 2 dams. The dams increased the growing time 3 months. Now, I can't proselytize, and I can't say Jesus. I can't leave a Bible. None of that was approved, but they knew that we cared. They knew that we have a different belief system. They knew that we came to their community for whatever reason, but we left a change. We left that behind. People go, well, you know, the country's gone back to the Taliban. And I said, whatever happened, there are people that know Americans do care. The people that came from that foreign land that looked so different from us and talked differently, they left things that made a difference, that are still making a difference.
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking about a Bible verse here in Matthew chapter 5, verse 14 says, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Here's the key. Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works." Goes with Ephesians 2:10.
Yep.
God prepared those in advance. "And glorify your Father who's in heaven."
Yeah.
So sometimes it is good to share the word of God, but it's also good to live out Christ and be light, loving people unconditionally. And people can feel when you love them unconditionally. Agape love. So it's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Well, hey, let's talk about this here real quick. You've been married to your wife for
35 years.
What's her name?
Danielle.
Danielle.
Yep.
What's the magic to a long marriage, Kevin? That's always
A bad memory. Really, not remembering hurts, wrongs, things that, again, words that have been said.
Yeah.
If you keep dredging up yesterday, every day is a new day.
Yeah.
I am different than I was yesterday. This week, my wife will tell you, the one thing I don't like are animals. When we moved to our current house, I had told my current 17-year-old, he was like 14 at the time when we moved. And I said, when we move to property, we have enough room, we'll get a dog. He knows I very much dislike dogs.
You just don't like dogs?
No, I don't like animals. Again, our house, I don't mind things outside the house.
Yeah, just not in the house.
In the house.
Okay, fair enough.
We moved to the property. I looked for, and we found him a dog. He now has a dog.
Yeah.
And teaching responsibility, teaching a lot of things that I really like. Hey, Dad, we're going to here. What am I going to do with my dog? That is a you problem.
That's a good question you should answer for yourself.
That's
What do you think
exactly-
you should do?
That's right. How are you going to get through this challenge you created? It's not a me problem. That is a you problem. And so great times with this dog engagement, right?
Yeah.
Last month, my wife's mother passed away, and it's been a really, really tough time for her. Last weekend, we actually went to Bend and finished cleaning out her house and all the memories and stuff that are going on. My wife's been really, really challenged. So we're talking engagement with wife. Came back home Tuesday here in Kaiser. The Chamber of Commerce was at the Friends of Felines. And they are really cute. Kittens are incredibly adorable. Honestly, it should be criminal. They're like crack.
They are.
They really are.
I agree. Yeah.
My wife didn't tell me my daughter and her daughter, my granddaughter, were coming into town.
Yeah.
And so they came into town. They're getting a new phone and trying to do some stuff because we still help the kids do things.
Sure.
So my wife calls and said, hey, can you take the granddaughter for an hour? It's her birthday here next week and a half. Why don't you go buy her some clothes? So we go shopping,
You and granddaughter.
me and granddaughter. And then, of course,
What a beautiful time.
it was awesome. Then there's still some time. They're not done with the phone. I just saw kittens. Would you like to go see kittens, Paige? Oh, we go see
You're
kittens.
done, man.
I was.
You're done.
My wife goes, where are you at? I'll send you a grid location. I send her a pin drop. So I send her a pin drop and she goes, where is this? I said, just come to where the pin says. So she does. And it's the new Friends of Felines here in Kaiser. And she walks in, and the kitten that we had held first when we walked in, my granddaughter and I, that was the one my wife went to 100%. I knew it was God. And so my wife, she goes, I know you don't like cats. I says, babe, I know you've had a hard time. This is what love looks like today. Love looks like we're getting a cat.
Come on, man.
Yeah. We almost got two. I said, no, I love you a
Let's do
lot.
one.
Let's
I
do-
love you. Here's one. But
Here's
what
one.
a cool thing, man.
Yeah.
What a cool thing.
So our whole married relationship, never had a cat. We've had a dog twice. Again, dogs are not the smartest animals in the world. They tend to eat things.
They take a lot of work, too.
They do, and they really are self-destructive. The last one we had did eat some plants it shouldn't have and didn't survive. So, after that experience, my kids kind of let Dad have a break. And so until this last dog, it's been a break of about 12 years.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about your mom's or your wife's mom passing away. I mean,
But the love.
the love piece, yeah.
Yeah, and my mother-in-law loved her to death. When that went down, too, my mom has been sick and your mother-in-law had been sick, and I call her mom. Yeah, for months she's been in care. We took her out of cancer treatment. She went into hospice about 6 months ago. And in hospice, you can still live a very vital life. In fact, it may be years before you pass.
Yeah.
So she had been in hospice. We'd gone on vacation in June together, and she had great memories with us. And then, August, she wasn't feeling well one day. She'd come to a family reunion on a Saturday, went home, went to church on Sunday, caught some kind of virus. She lived in an adult
Yeah.
kind of an apartment, but it's assisted only if you need it. And so my wife called her on a Sunday and said, hey, Mom, are you okay? And she goes, I'm not feeling well. Monday, we called back, and it was in the physical condition had changed so bad she was incoherent by Monday afternoon. We have a cousin that lived over in Lapine, and she drove up to Bend to see my mother-in-law, and she called us at like 9 o'clock at night. Because we'd been over and back for months, my mom would get sick and she'd be out in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And so my wife goes, well, we've got I had a son getting married the weekend after. We've got the Kaiser Fest coming up. We've got all these life things going on. It's a Monday at 9 o'clock in the evening. And my wife goes, well, maybe we'll call back tomorrow. And I says, nope, pack your bag.
We're going.
We're going. We packed our bags. We were there by midnight. And it was so bad by the time we got there, I didn't come home because they couldn't lift my mother-in-law to get her through what she needed. By the next day at noon, she had passed. And if my wife hadn't have been there, we look back at that as a God thing. She would absolutely, her spirit would be crushed if she hadn't have been beside her mom during that time of that passing. And, you see in the most difficult times, God's hand and provision. And we are stronger, and he gave us what we needed during that time. My wife actually caught what my mother-in-law had. We were in Bend for 2 more days while she recovered from that intestinal bug.
Yeah.
And we came back home by the end of the week. And
And here you
Never
are.
look back because God is only in the future.
Whew, that's heavy, man.
Yeah.
Hey, we're getting ready to wrap up on this podcast. I do want to end, and I do appreciate you sharing really that love piece, the cat. That's really amazing. I'll remember that one. But let's end on this note. You've retired from the military. You're still, we're guys. I'm in my mid to late 50s. You're almost 60. Who are we? What's our purpose? And we're new seasons. Like, what is the season God has you now? And it happens to be, I see Valor Mentoring. What is Valor Mentoring? What does it mean to you? What are you doing about it?
So at age 10, I was mentored. I had uncles and grandfathers and mothers come beside me and show me the way I should be living life. All my life, I joined the military and I had people that were assigned as my mentors all my life. Then I became a leader in the military. And then the role changed. I saw how my influence, giving $20 to a soldier that has bad decision making on counseling and I counsel him on how to keep your budget going and how this works in my life. I've been down the road ahead of you. There's a pothole ahead. If you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to blow a tire. You're going to go off the road. There's a corner. There are guardrails in place for a reason, and you're ignoring them. You're speeding. You're driving like a maniac. Your life is destined. The mentoring piece has been consistently reinforced in my life, either being mentored by men older than myself, and they may not even know they're my mentor. That's the funny thing about this. In the military, I saw leaders that may have been assigned as my commander or my direct report. And if I took the lessons they taught, one of the best examples I have of this is I worked for a guy when I first got there that he was a good leader, but he didn't keep me on task. And I got to work on a lot of stuff that may or may not have been what we needed to be doing. The next guy came in and he had an exact list of what I did every day. And when something fell off of my list, he would put something new on my list. My time became incredibly focused. And I tell people it was like being on the Star Trek Enterprise. When you're at full warp, there are no stars. There's just white lines in the sky. Then the leader right after him, he didn't care what I did. And he didn't even check in with me. And so it was like dropping out of hyperspace. I was back to the previous where I can see the stars. And taking those times, even the hyper-focused, busiest time I ever was in the military, that leadership style gave me an ability to see something different, to see how I, as a leader, may not be fully utilizing my people or my kids or my different relationships or the work that I do, and how to fully maximize the time. If I do believe that time and money are my most important things, I have to have a schedule. If you don't schedule them, Dave Ramsey says, every dollar that doesn't have a purpose, we'll find a purpose. Every minute, every hour, every day that doesn't have a purpose, we'll find a purpose. And so you say, I got nothing this weekend. I'm clear this Saturday. Well, it's going to be butt in seat watching something mindless on the TV that you won't remember in a day.
Yeah.
Or it will be death scrolling your Facebook or whatever social media. Yeah, it really is a lost opportunity. It's like lighting a $100 bill and throwing it out the window. It does not have a value. It doesn't have a result. Focus on this is the purpose of today. And it may be I'm spending the day with the wife and working the yard. I'm spending the life with the wife driving. We may not do anything, but we're together and we have a purpose. This is that weekend for that. It has to have a purpose. It has to have a direction of focus. Every dollar, every minute not focused will be lost.
Those are good words, man. And that's the message is being military, you've been under severe or extreme accountability. You have lives at stake.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know of a higher calling other than sharing the good news of Jesus. Thank you, by the way, for serving. I appreciate all of our military men and women who serve. I really do. But I think you take life really seriously. You have fun and you're a good husband and a good dad and you have fun. But look, you have time and money and both are dissipating like that, right? And so have a purpose for every day. That's kind of what I heard you say is, what is your purpose? And do you have a purpose? Or have you mindlessly scrolling, the death of Facebook or whatever?
Or even news. There are good things, but they're not best things, It really is. Am I going to eat fast food the rest of my life? I'm going to spend my life in a fast food diner, or am I going to get some real meat that changes my physical and spiritual health? Am I really going to get involved in things that make a difference? There are a lot of people, nothing against sports, nothing against golfing, nothing against all those things that people do for enjoyment. But when it becomes your focus, you have, I think, lost the priority of what life should be about. And I don't think retirement's in the Bible. I
don't think so either.
I think Moses went all the way up to the edge and he's gone. He worked till the day he died.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I mean, I don't think God's called us to retirement where we just sit around and, okay, I've got enough, and it's cool to have enough money. It's okay.
Yeah.
But look, just because you retire from the military doesn't mean there's not a new phase of life. To sit at home, how would that work for you, Kevin?
We tried that. So when I retired in 2018, my wife went back to work for 3 months. I was raising the son and kind of doing the household dad thing, and it literally drove me insane. Still involved in men's groups and youth groups and things at the church, but I didn't have that daily purpose to get up and drive. The house is clean and everything's done by 12 o'clock.
Okay, now what?
Now what? Yeah.
Now what?
And if you don't have a purpose, I think our lives were meant to be purposeful.
Yeah. Well, we're going to end on that note because I was going to ask you, what is this? If you had to summarize it, really, it's purpose.
Purpose.
It's like, what's your purpose in life? And so as we wrap up the podcast, we just want to say thank you for listening each week. We do drop this podcast every Friday morning. We would love it if you would share this podcast with your friends and family. If you ever want to be on the podcast or know of somebody that has a great story they want to share, please reach out to me. My email's in the show notes. And we're going to hear more stories like what Kevin shared. Look, we're just being transparent. I'm not perfect. Kevin's not perfect. But this is our life. And there is pain and there's suffering in life. It's the deal. So join us and get people involved in this, or however you want to get involved, and share your story. So, Kevin, thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. We appreciate you, and we appreciate you listeners. And we'll see you soon, man.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thank you.
Blessings.